There's a reason why solitude has always been a critical part of any transformative spiritual journey. You've probably felt it yourself, the undeniable pull toward being alone, away from the noise and chaos of the world. It's not just that you need time to recharge or escape from the demands of life. No, it's deeper than that. It's because as a chosen one, solitude isn't a retreat, it's a requirement. It's where you discover the core of your strength, your purpose, and your true self. And it's this solitude that makes you stronger than 80% of people. But let me ask you something. How do you feel when you're alone? Most people are terrified of being alone. They fear the silence, the stillness, the lack of distraction. They fill their days with constant interaction, entertainment, and noise just to avoid being with themselves. But for you, it's different. You know that in those moments of solitude, something shifts. The layers of your everyday self start to peel away, and you begin to see who you really are. It's uncomfortable at first, isn't it? Because being alone means facing everything you've been running from: your fears, your doubts, your insecurities. But here's the thing, only by facing those things can you overcome them. That's why chosen ones are drawn to solitude. It's not because we don't like people. It's because we know that in order to lead, to guide, to transform, we must first transform ourselves. And that kind of transformation can't happen in a crowded room. It can't happen when you're constantly surrounded by distractions. It happens in the stillness. It happens in the quiet moments when you're alone with your thoughts, your emotions, and your spirit.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You see, when you're alone, there's no one else to blame. There's no one else to distract you from your own inner world. You're forced to confront yourself in the truest, rawest sense. And that's terrifying for most people. But for chosen ones, it's the key to strength. Because when you confront yourself, when you sit with your fears and your doubts, you begin to realize something profound. You're stronger than all of it. But let's be real, this process isn't easy. It's not like you sit in silence for a few minutes and suddenly all your problems disappear. No, it's a battle. A battle between the part of you that wants to grow and the part of you that's terrified of change. And that's why so many people avoid being alone. They don't want to fight that battle. They don't want to face the discomfort. But here's the difference: you do. You, as a chosen one, know that the battle is necessary. You know that the discomfort is a sign that you're growing, evolving, becoming stronger. And with every moment you spend in solitude, you're sharpening your mind, your spirit, your resolve. You're learning to rely on yourself, to trust your intuition, to listen to the guidance of the universe without the interference of others. So let me ask you again, when was the last time you truly allowed yourself to be alone? Because here's the thing, being alone isn't about isolation. It's about connection to your higher self, to the universe, to the wisdom that flows through you when you're not distracted by the noise of the world. When you're alone, you can hear the whispers of your soul. You can feel the pull of your purpose. And that's where your true power lies. But here's the hard truth. Most people will never experience that kind of connection. They're too afraid. They're too wrapped up in their fear of being alone, their need for external validation, their addiction to distraction. And that's why they'll never be as strong as you. That's why only a small percentage of people, those who are willing to embrace solitude, to face themselves, ever reach their full potential. Now think about it, how many people do you know who are truly comfortable in their own company? Not many, right? Most people can't even sit in silence for 5 minutes without reaching for their phone, turning on the TV, or calling someone to fill the space. But you're different. You know that those moments of silence, those moments of being alone, are where the magic happens. It's where you tap into something deeper, something greater than yourself. And that's why being alone makes you stronger. But here's a question you need to ask yourself. How can you embrace solitude even more? Because the truth is, the more time you spend alone, the more you'll discover about yourself, the more you'll uncover the hidden strengths, the untapped potential, the divine wisdom that's been waiting for you all along. And that's what sets you apart from 80% of people. You're willing to go where most people won't. You're willing to do the inner work, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's painful. And that's why you're stronger. Stronger in spirit, stronger in mind, stronger in purpose. When you think about silence, what comes to mind? Is it peaceful? Is it terrifying? For most people, silence is unnerving. It's that space where distractions fade away and they're left with nothing but their own thoughts and feelings. It's why so many people avoid being alone. It's why they fill every waking moment with noise, with activity, with anything that keeps them from hearing the silence. But for you as a chosen one, silence is sacred. It's in that silence that you begin to hear the voice of your soul. You begin to feel the pull of your purpose, the guidance of the universe. And that's why being alone makes you stronger. Because in that silence, you're not just sitting in stillness, you're listening. You're tuning in to the frequencies of the universe, to the wisdom that's always been there, but can only be accessed in moments of solitude. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly listened to the silence? I'm not talking about sitting quietly for a few minutes while you wait for the next distraction. I'm talking about fully immersing yourself in the stillness, allowing the silence to wash over you, to speak to you. Because here's the thing, silence isn't empty. It's full of answers, full of guidance, full of wisdom. But most people will never hear it. They're too busy, too distracted, too afraid to sit in that space where the mind quiets and the soul begins to speak. But you, as a chosen one, know the importance of silence. You know that in those moments of solitude, of stillness, you're not just resting, you're recharging. You're realigning with your purpose, your path, your higher self, and that's where your strength comes from. Think about it. How many times have you found clarity or insight in a moment of silence? It's in those quiet moments, when the world fades away, that you begin to see things more clearly. You begin to understand yourself on a deeper level. You begin to see the patterns in your life, the lessons you need to learn, the paths you need to take. And that's why being alone is so powerful. It's not just about physical solitude, it's about spiritual alignment. But here's the thing. Most people will never experience this kind of silence. They live their lives in a constant state of distraction, of noise. They never take the time to sit with themselves, to listen to the silence, to hear the guidance that's waiting for them. And that's why they'll never be as strong as you. Because true strength doesn't come from external sources, it comes from within. It comes from the moments when you're alone, when you're listening to your soul, when you're connecting with the divine. So, let me ask you, how can you create more space for silence in your life? Because the more time you spend in silence, the stronger you become. The more you listen to the whispers of your soul, the more aligned you become with your true purpose. And that's what sets you apart from 80% of people. You're not afraid of the silence. You're not afraid of being alone. You know that in those moments of stillness, you're not just resting, you're growing. And that's why being alone makes you stronger. There's a reason why the greatest spiritual leaders, the greatest thinkers, and the greatest innovators have all spent significant time in solitude. It's because they understood something that most people don't. True strength comes from within. When you're alone, you're not just sitting in isolation, you're embarking on an inner journey. You're diving deep into your own mind, your own heart, your own soul. And on that journey, you begin to uncover the truth about yourself. You begin to see your strengths, your weaknesses, your patterns, your purpose. And that's where self-mastery begins. Let me ask you something. How well do you know yourself? Most people think they know who they are. But the truth is, they only know the surface level, the persona they present to the world, the roles they play in their everyday lives. But beneath that surface lies something deeper, something truer. And it's only in moments of solitude that you can begin to access the deeper part of yourself. When you're alone, there's no one else to distract you from your own inner world. You're forced to confront your thoughts, your emotions, your fears, your desires. And that's where true growth happens. Because only by confronting those things can you begin to understand them, to master them. But here's the thing, most people will never go on that inner journey. They're too afraid. They're too comfortable with the surface level of their lives. They never take the time to dive deep, to explore their own minds, their own hearts. And that's why they'll never reach the level of self-mastery that you're capable of. Because self-mastery isn't something that's handed to you, it's something you have to earn. And it's earned in moments of solitude, in moments of introspection, in moments of deep inner work. Think about it. How many times have you discovered something about yourself in a moment of solitude? It's in those quiet moments, when you're alone with your thoughts, that you begin to see the patterns in your life. You begin to understand why you do the things you do, why you think the way you think, why you feel the way you feel. And once you understand those things, you can begin to change them. You can begin to master them. And that's why being alone makes you stronger. Because in those moments of solitude, you're not just sitting in stillness, you're doing the inner work. You're mastering your mind, your emotions, your spirit. And that's something that most people will never do. So, let me ask you, how can you go deeper on your inner journey? Because the deeper you go, the stronger you become. The more you understand yourself, the more you can master yourself. And that's what sets you apart from 80% of people. You're not afraid of the inner journey. You're not afraid of being alone. You know that in those moments of solitude, you're not just resting, you're evolving. And that's why being alone makes you stronger. There's something incredibly powerful about learning to rely on yourself. When you're alone, you have no choice but to trust yourself, to depend on your own strength, your own wisdom, your own intuition. And that's why being alone makes you stronger than 80% of people. Because most people never learn to fully rely on themselves. They're always looking for external validation, external support, external guidance. But you, as a chosen one, know that true strength comes from within. Let me ask you something. How much do you trust yourself? Do you trust your intuition? Do you trust your decisions? Do you trust that you have everything you need within you to succeed, to grow, to thrive? Most people don't. They're constantly looking outside of themselves for answers, for approval, for direction. But when you spend time alone, you begin to realize that everything you need is already within you. When you're alone, you're forced to rely on yourself. And at first, that might feel uncomfortable. It might feel scary. But over time, you begin to realize that you're stronger than you ever knew. You begin to trust your instincts, your abilities, your inner wisdom. And that's where true confidence comes from. But here's the thing, most people will never experience that kind of self-reliance. They're too dependent on others. They're too afraid to trust themselves. They never take the time to sit in solitude, to listen to their own inner voice, to rely on their own strength. And that's why they'll never be as strong as you. Because true strength doesn't come from external sources, it comes from within. Well, think about it. How many times have you found strength you didn't know you had in a moment of solitude? It's in those quiet moments, when you're alone with yourself, that you begin to realize just how powerful you are. You begin to see that you don't need external validation, external approval, external support. You have everything you need within you. And that's where true confidence comes from. So, let me ask you, how can you cultivate even more self-reliance in your life? Because the more you rely on yourself, the stronger you become. The more you trust yourself, the more unshakable your confidence becomes. And that's what sets you apart from 80% of people. You're not afraid of being alone. You're not afraid of relying on yourself. You know that in those moments of solitude, you're not just resting, you're building unshakable confidence. And that's why being alone makes you stronger.